Good morning. Thank you, Krish, and thank you, Agnieszka, for inviting me. What to say? Thank you ever so much. I have an extra record, and I think probably I am the one person here with most children. I have 6 children and a stepdaughter, so I have 7. So I think that is my most amazing achievement of all. Anyway. Right, let me present, share the screen and share. There we go. I think I'm sharing now. And I have to play here. There we go. Okay. So today's presentation is the future of media accessibility research. First of all, I want to give you a little bit of boring information about why we are doing this accessibility, why the cost lead was granted, and why we're doing research in media accessibility. And we're doing research in media accessibility, well, we were doing research before 2006, and this research was to do with people with disabilities, and the framework was more to do with getting everybody into an inclusive society. And everybody was at that time people with disabilities. In 2021, people with disabilities had vanished and inclusion has vanished. So it is incredible how fast concepts and words and ideas, they shift. Anyway, while we started with people with disabilities and the clinical model, that is the deaf and the blind and the in 2006, the UN created a new human right, and this human right is the right of access to content in the society, information society. And this human right of access to content in media, in the new society that is connected and it is online, gave rise to a signature and then a ratification by the European Commission. The interesting thing is that the UN is participated by countries. So each country signs each human right, and each country tells the United Nations when they sign a human right, what are the actions are they going to do to fulfill this human right. So Poland will write the human right, Spain will sign and ratify the human right, and then a new law, a new legislation would happen directly from the UN to the country that signs and ratifies. Strangely enough, for the first time ever, the whole of the European Council signed this. And that meant that it was not just at national level that we signed this, what is it called, the CRPD. It is to do this convention, sorry, this convention. It is also that the whole of Europe, Europe as a unity signed this convention. And then because Europe signed this, Europe then had to reply with some legislative framework to implement everything that is mentioned in this human right. So 3 legislative bodies or legislative documents were created. The first one was the web accessibility that is just already coming into force in 2021. The Audiovisual Media Directive, that was 2019, and the European Accessibility Act is 2019. So these 3 pieces of legislation were passed, and now they've come down to Europe in something called transposition. And the transposition means that each European country has to adapt these 3 pieces of legislation to the national legislative normative. And then everything will come into force into 2025. And also it means that Europe, as the Council, has asked the European standardization bodies to create the standards that these countries will have to measure against. So it is quite a shift that has happened in Europe at legislative level. So while in the past we were raising awareness in the last decade, in this decade we are not going to raise awareness anymore. In this decade, we have the legislative pool to create finance and resources for it, and also to understand how to implement, and also to understand how to report and how to measure and how to penalize those who don't fulfill that. So this research that we're doing, this standardization that we're doing, all that answers to this signature of Europe in 2006 to the human rights. So that's the basic understanding of why we're doing this and why is this a human right, or why is this based in a human right, and that allows, or it is a tool to achieve a human right, media accessibility. So after this boring introduction, yes, because of all this background, we are very lucky at the university, and we have plenty of projects, European projects, running right at the moment. And I will be telling you about these projects with the research that we're doing, because of course, what I am going to tell you is not because I am Mystic Meg and I have this ball and I can see the future. It is because we've already got some funds to do this in the future, and because we are looking into the calls that they just happened now into the future, and that's how I've based my my presentation today. What I have done as well is to try to understand everything that I'm going to present. What is the effect that it's going to have in terms of research? So I think rather I was going to find, the idea to me is that the metaphor to me was that media accessibility is going to explode because there is so much going on at the moment. So this explosion, I looked for images, and they were all horrible. It was to do with bombs, and but I found the volcano, and I thought it was quite nice. And also the volcano was quite nice because it produced different things. One is smoke. So some of the research would just go up in smoke, or it would just go in ashes. Some of the smoke, some of the research would be a really nasty explosion, and that's the first volcano, and with a black cloud on the top, sitting on the top. And some of the research would be a beautiful rainbowy type of research that would generate fantastic research. So I have tried to predict, in a way, what type of impact would have each of these. The first thing, as I said, is the transposition. The transposition is that when each European country has to adapt these three European legislations into each European country, okay? So it would have to create roadmaps on how these services, accessibility services, are going to be implemented, amongst many other things. So how is audio description, subtitles, sign language on screen, and audio subtitling, for example. How is this going to be implemented in the country? In both linear and non-linear. So the Netflix of this world has to be accessible as well. And private and public. So yes, Netflix has to be accessible. How is this going to happen in each country? So each country would need to have, one is legislation and two is standardization, because you cannot have legislation without the standardization. You cannot say subtitles should be of quality. Where is the quality? So you have to generate a standard that says quality for Poland would be X. And this X is what needs to be done in each European country in order to have a legislation that fits with it. And from the experience that we have in Spain and the experience that we have by drafting all these documents in ISO, This is a nasty business. This creates an explosion with a black cloud, and the black cloud is not good news. But what I have to say is that there is money available to do a standardization, and I have pasted here. The fourth call for the Standict is coming up. So you can apply for money to do the standardization in your country, and you can apply for money to do the standardization, to belong or to participate in a standardization in Europe, because there is a lot of standardization that is going to happen. And what I urge all of you is to do it, because we're doing so much research on reading speed of subtitles, for example, or empathy in audio description, or whatever we're doing. We're doing so much research on media accessibility at the university, and we have so good results, and they are evidence-based results. They are scientific results, and it would be fantastic to put them into our national standards against companies who would say that reading speed doesn't matter, or associations that would project what they want to project about their end users. So this is standardization is it's a very nasty sort of activity, and it is when you transfer all the work that we have done at the university into society and into something that is going to be very, very useful. So not only you can do that, sort of belong to the standardization in your body, which is free, and you can do it, but also all these new standardization is going to happen in Europe. So we have to create 3 new standards, the harmonized standards. Well, you got them on the screen. I'm not going to read them. And this presentation would be online. So all these new standards, they have to be created, and I'm working on them. So I would be very, very happy if I have some support from colleagues across Europe, from universities. And also we have already some standards like the 301.549. This is a nasty standard. If anybody would join this, I would be very happy, because this is industry-based. So they don't want to know about what we know in university and about what the results that we have in university. So it is basically what is best for industry and not what is best for the end user. So if you could join in any of this, I would be really, really happy. And there is money to join these events and these bodies. So basically the idea that we're working at in Europe is to have something called accessible born, or native accessibility. And that is something that Pablo Romero Fresco has done with filmmaking, and is that we start everything from thinking about it, for designing about it, with accessibility included, because it is better for usability, and also because at the end of the day it's cheaper if we think of accessibility at the beginning, not as an orthopedic solution at the end. So that is standardization is going to happen, and it's going to happen in a big way, and that's the next thing happening. Something else happening is that it's going to have, and we already have, intelligent interaction. My watch is intelligent, and it tells me what to do: stand up, sit down, go here, go there, start breathing, stop breathing, all these things. I don't know if at home you have many tools or many cleaning devices, for example, like the Roomba, to clean your house, and you can interact with Google, or with any of these home assistants that they can do things for you. So this is quite interesting, because it's also going to help us to create a user profile. And that is fantastic, because we would be able to adapt, or they would adapt themselves, the accessibility services to our profile. And that means the subtitle would be able to adapt to your reading speed, and in each genre, because it's not the same. I think we've been seeing this in this week. It is not the same reading when a Woody Allen movie that reading a conversation or what was it yesterday, or documentary, for example, and it's not the same reading these difficult long words that reading everyday words and regressing in our reading. So the idea that any service would be able to adapt to your requirements at any given time, because it's learned how you do it. And that is respecting the data protection from you. It's a challenge. It would be quite interesting. So this artificial intelligence that we're going to have to develop for this intelligent interaction, for this user profiling, respecting European law of data protection and confidence and trust and all these things, is going to be quite interesting. And to me, the volcanoes are all, some research would go up in smoke, some research would go up in ashes, some research would be really sort of awful, and some of it would be wonderful. So we're working on this in a new project called SENT that is starting in October for the next 3 years, where we have to try to make citizen education regarding the smart environment and regarding sustainability for the environment accessible to all. And that would mean that students, but also teachers, students can access the content, but also that teachers produce educational content in an accessible way and with accessibility, both. So that's our next challenge for the next 3 years at UAB, and I'm sure it would be fantastic. In a standardization regarding to this, we're trying to create something called the Common User Profile, the CUP. And the CUP would be an automatic profiling that the system does, learning your preferences. And this is a standard that is being developed in the UN agency ITU. And again, if you would like to participate on that, you're very welcome. It is free. And it would be fantastic if you would help to define this common user profile variables that can be adjusted or that need to be adjusted to provide a customized interaction. Something else that is changing, I've already mentioned that, it would be the idea that we move from disabilities to capabilities. When we started research, me included, we were talking about audio description for the blind, we were talking about subtitling for the deaf, we were talking about, and it was in quite an exclusive way. We were talking about the deaf and the blind and nobody else, when in fact many other groups could benefit from whatever we design for the deaf and the blind. And in fact, if we go for the universal design, everybody can benefit from whatever we designed for any group. So the idea now is not that we are following a clinical model where through we tag people through the disabilities. So a person is deaf, and in a clinical model, if you put subtitles, the person should be able to listen again. The person will never listen again if you read subtitles. The person would get an alternative communication through subtitling. And now what the person does with the subtitling is something else, but at any given time, but it definitely will not hear again. And the same with the blind. By listening to an audio description, the person will not see the movie. The person would have alternative communication with the movie, with alternative information that is highly subjective. But so this is why we think that makes little sense to go for the disability model, and it would make more sense to go for the capability model. And in fact, we've already have surprising research results through this. We designed an audio description for 360 environment videos. And actually what happened was that it was the deaf who enjoyed it better because the sound being in a, you could move the sound objects could be modified. So because you could modify these sound objects, you could modify the dialogue and the background. And then sometimes you have a type of hearing loss where you can't understand, the intelligibility of the dialogue is very hard in spoken. So by lowering the background and making the dialogue higher, then you were able to understand better the conversation. So something that we designed for the blind, it was of great, in fact, the people who said that they liked it best were the deaf. So that is one good example why I think we should go and going to capabilities. It's perhaps a better way. And in fact, even Lego has gone that approach. So let's move that. That, of course, means that a lot of the research that we have done, and that includes my own very research, has to be done again, because we only considered one group. We didn't consider the other group or the other groups or the other profiles or the other capabilities. So perhaps some of the conclusions that we've arrived very fast in the first decade of media accessibility research may need to be revisited. So that gives us a lot of work again. And again, some of it would go up in smoke and some of it, but I think is the 4 possibilities for the research there. 360 immersiveness, either the synthetic, like the video games with Unity, for example, or the video, which is to me more interesting because I'm doing the work there. I'm doing the work with Hecht here. I'm doing the work with Chris Hughes, who would be presenting tomorrow. I'm doing the work with Andrew Duchowski, who's also presented, and I'm doing the research with Mar Brescia, who's also here. And the idea started 5 years ago when we had a European project to understand how would accessibility services would behave in 360. And hello, Mar. And the thing is that we thought we were very clever and we've done a lot of work, but the fact is that we only started to understand how would accessibility would behave in 360. So I think perhaps after 3 years, one of the good, or perhaps the only positive outcome from that was that in 360 you have to use some guidance mechanisms to guide the user in the 300 environment, because you don't know where the end user is looking. So through guiding the user and tell the user go there because there's where the action is happening, and then the subtitle or the audio description or the sign language will happen there. But then with Chris Hughes, if 2 people speak at the same time, then you get subtitles crashing. And we don't know where the attention goes with the subtitle reading, and we don't even know. Mar found something quite interesting, that perhaps reading patterns in 360 is not regressive but dipping. That's something that we have to look at. So it's going to be fascinating in the future, and it's going to be beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to the research there. The 2 screens at the bottom are to do with, let me see if I can show you what we have done. Okay, what we have done, I hope you can see this. We are doing immersive accessible storytelling, and that is where you are in 360 video, and then you tell a story in 360 in 360. So there is a sort of a sequence and there is a narrative there. For that, there is many tools that you can use. And each tool, the tool you have the 360, let's see, yeah, you have the 360 picture, and there you move in there the way you want. So you have this highlighted spots, they call hotspots. And if you press in the hotspot, then it takes you to the next stage of the narrative. Okay. The problem that we have at the moment is that we have the tool to do this narrative storytelling in 360, but we don't have the tool to edit the subtitles, the audio description, or the sign language. So yes, we can create in 2D subtitles, we can create in 2D sign language, and we can create an MP3 audio description, but there is no way to place them in the 360 environment. What we have done, and that is an amazing team of Victor Garcia, Susie Fraser, and Estela Oncins, what they did is, by spending hours and hours and hours, is to generate the content. And in each hotspot, for example, the sign language, I hope it works. Okay, in the hotspot, you press the hotspot and it simulates what would happen. But in fact, this is not what we are aiming for. This was just made for the engineers that we're working with, to show them where were the challenges and what was our requirements. So you can see here, that is the subtitles that would come up. But of course, you have to understand that you have to go inside the 360 with head-mounted displays. And by looking, this subtitle will come up when you look at it, and you can activate it. And for that, you would also need a media player that allows you to activate the subtitles. So not all the services should be on display and all the languages should be on display, and you have to choose. The idea would be that, as you do with any media player, beforehand, you would choose what services you want and in which language you want them. And that would then be activated in whatever you are consuming. There are two very good articles. One is by Mar Brescia about accessibility media players, and the other one is by Chris Hughes and Mario Montagut. So we already have good research done on media players and how the media player of the future, the accessible media player of the future should be. Because without the media player, you can't access the content that is accessible, and it wouldn't make any sense. So that is something that we have to do and we have to research. Let's go back to here. More things. Immersiveness also has to do with sound. And as you can see here, we can now, because the sound is now coming in objects, is coming in channels. You can see on the right that you can do the bass, choose the bass, the keys, the guitar. So you can choose what type of sound do you want. And also on the left, you can have it, you want it stage, so in 360 ambi sound, or if you want it in fader, so you can equalize it, and also the level of it. In the past, we could also, the only thing we could do was to put the volume higher or lower. Now you would be able to put the volume higher or lower in each of the sounds, in each of the channels, in each of the areas. And that is phenomenal for deaf people, as I mentioned earlier, is phenomenal for audio description, because, for example, for audio description, we could make it intelligent, and the audio description could go next to you as a friend, telling you, this is happening here, this is happening there, but it could go intelligent in the sense that it could go wherever the action is happening. So if we could tag where the sound is produced with the audio description, you would also be able to understand the intensity of the action and the distance, if it's left, if it's right, if it's behind you, of the audio description. So in fact, audio description becomes an amazingly complex accessibility service in immersiveness, and there is so much work to do. So that's fantastic. And if you want to see a 360 audio description that is not accessible, but it is there, you can go to the GAD 2021 in this video that we created and see it. Sign language, sign language and immersiveness, that is incredible, because what would you do? Would you do the signer in 360 in a 360? So the signer himself or herself would be a 360 image, or would you have a flat 2D or did a signer in a 360? And also, I haven't put it here because it's too much information, but also when we see in 360, the quality of the vision is not the same at the sides than at the center. So the acuity of this vision changes phenomenally. So we have to be very careful what we do with 360 and a picture in picture. So it would be a video in a video. And that is already quite interesting. We know that it has to be guided, like the subtitles. So we know that we have to have a guiding mechanism, like the arrows here, that tells you, go there, because that's where the speaker is, and there is where the sign language is going to happen. So that we know, perhaps is the only thing we know. No, we also learned something else. We learned two things. That is the guiding mechanism. And the other thing we learned is that if there is no dialogue, the deaf people told us, the deaf signers told us that they would rather have no window with a person not moving. So it wouldn't make much sense to have a person there if there was no dialogue, for example, until the dialogue or whatever there has to be signed happens. So they said that they would rather have no window, and then whenever happens, the signer appears again, then the window opens again and it tells you where to look. That's the only two reliable data that we got after 3 years of working with this. And on the left hand there, you have what I was saying before, the media player. The media player where you can choose the language, when you can choose the position, where would you go, and the size. Okay, so that is some of the customization, the personalization that you can do. And that would be, you would have to personalize it every time, or it would remember it. But that's not what we're going for. What we're going for is the full automatic personalization through deep learning in the future. My guess is that this is going to be a fantastic research. There is so much to do with it. And I'm not talking about the creation of avatars. That is yet again an added layer, because of course all this could be done with a human, but of course all these could be done through avatars. And right now there is about 18 million euro being spent in Europe to generate avatars for both, to translate text into avatar and avatar into text for a full communication of European languages, also between themselves. So this is going to really offer a fantastic research avenues that are already there and that are happening. And yeah, this is happening. The other thing that is going to be wonderful is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is here, and that means that video is an object or objects that you can put video in video, that you can put the video and you can consume with your mobile, some video and not the other video, that you can interact into. So because every media object is there, and you can decide what to choose, what to consume, and how to consume it, and how to transport it, and everything, which to me, that's why I chose this picture to other pictures that there were in internet. Everything is through a cloud. So it is quite interesting. It is cloud-based, and that's gonna change, and this has changed already, the way we work, the way we research. Agnieszka was telling me that yesterday you were, and in fact it's on the chat, that you are now able to do eye tracking in the cloud through a camera, not your Zoom camera, but the camera of the eye tracking company that you're using to do eye tracking online. The concept of doing eye tracking in this decentralized way is phenomenal. And yeah, the research there, it's, the sky's the limit. It is going to be fantastic. So the production is going to change because through cloud, you are able now to work remote. You are able to have the editors for subtitling, for the description, for sign language. They're all in the cloud, and then you can do whatever you want with the files that you produce. So you put them here, you translate them. You translate them physically, personally, you translate them automatically, then you can post-edit them. All that is done in the cloud, and it is wonderful what you can do. And also the cloud and this production allows for tagging whatever you produce. So the production is going to be phenomenal. It is cloud-based. The distribution, again, you would be able to choose what files do you want and how do you want them. And again, the sky is the limit. Something that we're doing at the moment is in this, it is the copyright, subtitling, audio description, sign language, easy to read, all these accessibility services, they have copyright. But it is so difficult to understand who has the copyright for that movie that it is cheaper to create a new subtitle rather than reuse one that is already created. So through blockchain, for example, we can tag this file, this subtitle file, and then we can trace who is the owner of this subtitle file, or this audio description file, or this whatever file. So any media asset would be able to be tagged with metadata, and it had a unique identifier, and through this unique identifier we would be able to understand who is the owner, and, for example, what type of rights this media asset has. Can it be used? Is it a Creative Commons? What type of Creative Commons license it has? Who is the owner, and would the owner allow me, even if there is an owner, the owner may allow me to use it for free. For example, if money is paid from the European Union to make movies through Creative Europe accessible, the subtitles that have been created have been paid through public funding, through public money. So even though a company has created these subtitles for this movie, these subtitles were paid already with everybody's money. So the idea is that though this company is the owner of these subtitles, the subtitles would be for free, and they can be reused and repurposed for free. But yes, if a company creates subtitles and nobody pays this company to create subtitles, but whoever studio pays for them, then they would have to agree through either a smart legal contract or smart contracts. They would have to automatic contracts. They would have to agree who is the owner of the asset, of the subtitle, and perhaps 40% or 60% one and 40. So all this information would be inside the metadata contained in the copyright in the blockchain. And then we would be able to understand these assets better. And in fact, at the end of the day, it could be that subtitlers and audio describers and sign language interpreters get money from what they do. And now it's just, you either get one payment and then it vanishes, or very rarely you continue getting payment for something that you did and it's being used and consumed all over the time, like any song. Every time you play a song, the writer or the person who has the rights gets some little money. Well, it would be the same. Every time that your subtitles are consumed, you would get a tiny little bit of money, and that is more just, and that would make sense. So that is something that we're working right now, but we hope to develop it further in the future. So the idea of blockchain there, and also the idea, as I was mentioning before, the idea of getting paid for what you do, and that would be through bitcoins or through money or through whatever of this money that is available at the moment, not just only fiat currency, but also the other currencies that are available at the moment. So the idea that we're going to get paid eventually for the work that we do is something that is going to happen in the future. And I hope in the very, very near future. Something else that we are doing, and increasingly so with accessibility, is that because accessibility through the European accessibility law is not only to do with media and media assets and media to do with the world of culture. Media accessibility is now to do with all the industrial sectors, and that is the European accessibility law. It has to do with transport and how you buy a ticket, and how you, then is the physical accessibility, how you go into a train or how the information of the train is given to you. Transport to do with self-driving cars. Not very far away, we will be driving cars that are self-driven, but then we would need accessibility to drive these cars, because you might be not very good at hearing, and then you would need to be told what is the situation outside you. Is an ambulance coming and you can't hear it? Is it so all this, is the weather, is it going to be a storm, a thunderstorm, and it's going to pour down with rain and you have to be careful in the driving? All this information would have to be learned by the car. So, and by you as well. So this kind of accessibility for the transport industry, for tourism industry, for any industry. For example, something that we're doing is, I showed you how we're doing the storytelling, and then you go into storytelling, and well, you can go into a 360 supermarket. We've done that already in the Giorgio Armani shop. You can go into the Giorgio Armani 360 shop and then decide if you want to go for socks or for shirts or for whatever, but then selling the shirts. Imagine you can go into a 360 supermarket and go around the supermarket in your head, and then you can go into a counter and ask for cheese, and they would give you cheese, but this cheese could be done through sign language, or it could be done through subtitling, and also the cheese may be audio described for you. So accessibility would be in any industrial sector. Well, I can't imagine it being into the nuclear electricity generating, but anyway, into most industrial sectors. So accessibility is no longer the object of study of funded research. Accessibility is also part of the transversal skills, or a transversal attribute that has to be in any industrial sector. And this is already happening to us and our research. We have research on in So Close, for example, where we are trying to understand the therapeutic and the healing solutions when forced displacement in Europe through wars is happened, and how people through immersive storytelling, like the one that I showed you earlier, and telling their stories through songs and through images, can be really positive for them. It can be really positive for the people who watch them, and it can be so much information and so much learning for the collective of Europeans who have been very nasty to ourselves. So we think that all the nastiness happens in Africa or in China. No, a lot of nastiness happens in Europe itself. So this trying to understand Europeans and trying to love each other and to reconcile each other is something very important that Europe has put money in and has put money in through accessibility as well. The Traction project that is to do with how opera can also be a media or a medium where some social transformation can happen. And again, accessibility is in it, but it's not the object of the project. So it is just an element to put a layer of alternative communication to make sure that people can communicate fully. And in the diversity of population that they are in Europe, can all of them get access to opera. Rebuild is exactly the same, is to do with migrants coming into Europe. Helios is to do with how in communication that is decentralized, how do we communicate in this and how we understand this decentralized communication through accessibility as an alternative way of communication in a non-central like Facebook way. And scent, I already told you before. So the idea is that we train the future teachers in Europe how to generate 360 content towards a resilient eco Europe, a green Europe. So to do with tourism and accessibility in tourism, and also with this cost action that is organizing this summer school, we were informed that they've accepted a proposal of a special issue on accessibility of tourism. So the deadline is quite nice, is next year. So if any of you would be interested, tourism is everything. It goes from buying a ticket to making videos for content or visiting museums or visiting. Anything is tourism and everything is tourism. So I think probably all of your research could be applied to tourism. And here you have a good journal, is indexed and it's very fast. It's 6 weeks is the maximum we have to give feedback for an article. So here is an outlet for your research if you're doing it for next year in tourism. And that's all I have to I can't see my watch. Oh God, that's fast. So that's all I have to say, and thank you very much.